Hello, I'm Brandon,
And I'm Mom.
and welcome back to Tansson Talks TV.
Yes, thank you for joining us again today.
Yeah, 'tis the season for Tansson Talks TV, and we're always excited to bring you these TV discussions.
Yes, 'tis the season, Brandon, and I'm so happy that everyone's here to join us today because we're ending this season with another holiday special.
And Mom, which one is this?
I Love Lucy, Brandon.
Yes, this is the I Love Lucy Christmas show that we were speaking about that originally aired December 24th, 1956.
Wow.
While you're getting your notes prepared to speak about, I did want to provide some insight to this episode. So, I Love Lucy is a multi camera sitcom, one of the earliest ones. It originally debuted in October of 1951 and aired for 6 seasons of 180 episodes. And that includes a lost episode, which is the one we're speaking about here today.
I know, Brandon, and it's so hard to believe that this, I think, wonderful episode was lost for so many years. Um, I know you mentioned that it came on in 1956. When did it kind of come back up again?
Yeah, so this episode right here was considered lost for decades, because it was considered a holiday special and not necessarily a regular episode, so it was not included within syndication, but it did not reappear again from 1956 up until 1989.
That is incredible, Brandon. That it was gone for that long, especially for such just a, to my idea, just a cute little episode.
Yes, and this episode, just like the whole series, aired in black and white. But this episode, starting in 2013, did come back annually with a colorized version.
Yep, and Brandon, I actually remember when it came out as a colorized version, and it was so nice to see. I do remember when it came out in 1989, or whenever I watched it when it came out again, and um, and it was so nice to see it colorized because the Lucy's had began to colorize. There were just a few episodes that they colorized.
Yes, and like I said, I'm very excited for us to get into this discussion. And just as a little tidbit, too, before we get into speaking about this episode, is that this is one of the earliest multi camera, traditional sitcoms. And so it helped, pave the way for many of the sitcoms we've spoken about on Tansson Talks TV. And this one in particular is based off of the radio sitcom My Favorite Husband.
Oh wow, well that's good to know.
Yes, and that radio sitcom actually had Lucille Ball, in that show as well.
Okay. And are you able to give us just a little information about the show itself in regards to the premise?
So basically, the show is just the misadventures of Lucy and Ricky, played by Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, and as well as their interactions with their next door neighbors, the Mertzes.
Yep, it is. It is, and it's a fun little series because Ricky is in show business, and Lucy believes that she should be in show business along with Ricky, and so throughout the time of the series, we do find that Lucy does go and try to make herself ready for the business, and then she's in cahoots with her neighbors at times, who will actually help her with the process, or sometimes not help her with the process of being famous, being a known name along with her husband.
Yeah, well, if you are ready, I'm excited for us to get into this special episode of I Love Lucy, produced by Desilu Productions.
Alrighty. And this particular episode, as we talked about before, it is Christmas time. Um, and it begins with it showing little Ricky. And I should explain that they do have the Ricardos do have a son, and his name is Ricky. And he at this time is approximately 5 years old. And then so Ricky is there, and they're talking to little Ricky in regards to he needs to go to sleep because it is Christmas time and Santa needs to come, and Santa doesn't come unless you're asleep. And so Ricky's kind of funny because he sits himself down and he has all these questions that he needs to ask his parents. And so they provide some answers to him. And then when he goes to bed, their neighbors, Fred and Ethel Mertz, come in and they bring with them a Christmas tree. And so they put the tree up and then they start to decorate the tree. As they begin to decorate, they start to reminisce a little bit. As they're reminiscing, Fred is actually trimming the tree at the same time. And so the tree becomes a little smaller during the reminiscing. And so Fred has to go out and actually get another tree. And but they reminisce that, and we'll talk about this a little later, about three particular episodes in their lives. And then at the end, Santa does come, and Ricky does have his toys and everything like that. And then there is not just one Santa; there are multiple Santas. And so, that really is the premise of this particular episode.
Well, thank you so much for summarizing this episode.
You are welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed this episode. I've seen it several times over, practically almost every colorized and black and white version, available. And so, yeah, I would say that though I have not seen the entire series of I Love Lucy, I'd say I've seen a decent handful of episodes, but they've all been quite a while ago. But this episode I remember the most.
Yeah, and Brandon, it has been a while. And I know it seems like we say this for each session, but it's been a while since I've seen Lucy on a regular basis. At the time when I kind of watched it, it just happened to be at a time that I was either getting ready for work or something like that, and Lucy was on. And I would just kind of watch the episodes at that time. But I have not seen any aired episodes, and I'm not quite sure and I really don't know if it's really airing on a regular basis right now because I just haven't looked for it. And I know when we watched this particular episode, we weren't able to find the colorized version. We found the black and white version that we did watch, and we were able to find a couple clips of the colorized version that we could see to kind of enhance, what we saw while we were watching it.
Yeah, and I am actually glad that we saw the black and white one because it is the original.
Yeah.
But I will say that I really enjoyed seeing the colorized ones every year, and I don't think I've seen them over the last couple years.
No, I think it's been a while. I know we've mentioned before it was on CBS, and if I remember correctly, that's where it would air when they were showing the versions that were in color. But it's been a while since I've seen the actual versions of them.
Yeah, but nevertheless, I really enjoyed this episode. And before we get into any discussion, I do have a quick question for you, and that is, how much do you know about I Love Lucy?
I probably know enough to be dangerous. I did, of course, in reruns. I watched the show, like I've kind of mentioned before. I did watch. I think I've seen all the episodes, and I go in and out of which episodes I prefer. I think I prefer the seasons when after Little Ricky's born. That's just my preference. That I've kind of discovered. I kind of like those episodes a little bit better. I know that I've watched these episodes with my mother too. I know you've watched them with me, and so I do remember. Depending on the episodes, I remember quite a bit about the series.
Well, that's good to know. And Mom, I'll allow for you to go into your top 10.
All right. And so we've kind of had a theme that we've talked about for different ways in which we think our holiday episodes, different characteristics of our holiday episodes. And so I took those same characteristics and tried to apply it to Lucy also. And for the most part, they kind of met the characteristics that we kind of talked about generally. First of all, we've said it's nostalgic because it is a reflection of that time period, and it creates kind of a homey feeling when you kind of watch the particular episode. We've said that there is a discussion of a tree, and just about in the holiday episodes, and in this episode also there is a discussion of the tree. In this particular episode, it is really Fred Mertz, who is actually there at the time in regards to the tree trimming. Well, I mean, they're all there, but Fred is the one who's actually touching the tree. And so when the tree's brought in, a big discussion about is held about Fred actually paying for the tree. And it was so funny because he said that he paid $5 for it. And I know, Brandon, you said you looked it up, and I think you said, how much is it worth now? $5 is equivalent to what amount?
Yeah. Yeah, so the $5 tree is now equivalent to today's money to $56.44.
Yeah, which is well, I guess at that time period a lot of money, and so and Fred was cheap anyway. So for Fred to pay for the tree was really nice as a neighbor to do. And then as they're reminiscing, like I said, Fred does kind of cut the tree to kind of trim it because Lucy says it needs to be trimmed. And at the end of the reminiscing, the tree is almost gone. So Fred has to go out and buy another tree, which I believe he said he spent roughly about 50 cents for. Is that correct, Brand? Go ahead.
Yes, you said he spent half a dollar on that, which in today's money is $5.64.
So, yes. So Fred, I'm sure, was hurting to spend all that money on a tree. And so anyway, and then of course they talk about the lights on the tree. Also, once the tree is up, they do put lights on the tree, and of course the lights go out, and so they have to find the bulb that was not screwed in all the way, or was broken or whatever. And so there is discussion of the tree. For songs, there is a song, although very slight here. The Christmas song that is sung here is actually Jingle Bells. But when Ricky sings Jingle Bells, when of course Ricky's, I believe he's singing in the Spanish verse, and then Ethel kind of chimes in and she starts singing the song also, and then Lucy chimes in. Of course, when Lucy sings, Lucy does not sing well. We won't say can't sing. Let's say she does not sing well, and um, and so this leads to a discussion about Lucy singing and what she sang previously in another episode. And so singing of holiday songs is actually in this episode too. But not only in this episode are there holiday songs, but there are songs from other two episodes that are in here. When Lucy first tells Ricky that she's expecting a baby, there's a song there. And there's also another song when she's in a barbershop quartet. These are reflection songs that are in the episode. And then we talk about they discuss the perfect gifts for little Ricky. And in this case, little Ricky's supposed to receive, and he does receive a bike, a train, and a drum set. And so all that can be seen on the episodes plus whatever's underneath the tree. Um, and then there's Santa. And I think this is actually the most important one for this particular episode. Santa is seen, but there's not just one Santa, there are five Santas. And you can ask the question, why are there five Santas? Well, um, first, the Ricardos dress up as Santa, and then the Mertzes dress up as Santa, and they're all there together. And it appears as though there are four Santas. However, they when little Ricky comes in, the Santas leave, and another Santa is there. And so they all look at each other, and then they pull down the beards when they realize there are five Santas there, and they realize that one Santa's beard does not come off. And then he just kind of magically disappears. So the Santas is very important in this particular episode. We talked about the family feeling, and I think there's a family feeling throughout this whole episode. They're doing everything they can for little Ricky because this is their only child that they do have, and then they also have, as I kind of mentioned, some reflections here also. So I'll talk about the reflections within this family feeling at this time. There are three particular reflections that they have. The first reflection is when Lucy told Ricky that she was expecting a baby. And of course, at that time they couldn't say pregnant, so they said a blessed event. And so they actually give a flashback to this particular scene where Lucy's at the club and Desi's singing, and he's looking for the parents of the child to just kind of say that they are having a baby. And so Ricky notices that she's there, and he looks at her and he greets her, and then she nods, and then he realizes this is his baby that's going to occur. So that was the first reflection. For the second reflection, they're reflecting back to the day that Lucy actually goes into labor with little Ricky, and they're back at their apartment, and they decide they needed to rehearse having the baby. Lucy saying that she's going to have a baby or needs to go to the hospital. And so they rehearse it, of course, very calmly the first couple times, and then the last time when Lucy does come out and says the time has come, um, they it's a madhouse, as you can expect, trying to get Lucy out of the door to take her to the hospital. And then the third reflection that we have, and I think I did this a little out of order. The the other reflection that occurred was, I think, in the middle of those two I just spoke about, was Lucy was in a well, there was Ricky and the Mertzes were in a barbershop quartet per se, and they were singing at the club. And and Lucy decides to be one of the barbers in the person who is being shaved at the time. Um, she decides to be in the little group, and so she would complete the quartet, but they didn't know that she was there singing. So when they sing, and they sang, those three sing really well, then all of a sudden Lucy sings. It sounds kind of bad, and so they play with her a little bit. But anyway, um, so they're just kind of showing how Lucy wants to sing, but she can't sing. And so the family feeling they kind of create is really the memories of right before little Ricky is born, but then they're kind of going forward also with little Ricky being there and what they're doing for little Ricky for Christmas. All right. Then we have a cute kid, and of course that would be little Ricky at this time period. And then memorable quote. Well, there are a couple of memorable quotes for me, and the first one, and really reflects back to the pregnancy episode where they're taking Lucy to the hospital. When Lucy says, "The time has come," I think that's one that you and I kind of laugh at quite a bit, Brandon. And then the other quote is actually when they broke the fourth wall, because, like I said, not a lot of TV shows kind of break the fourth wall to speak to the audience itself. But when Santa disappears, they all look, and even though it's a common thing, but they just said "Merry Christmas, everyone." But it's the fact that they broke the wall to say that, and they do it in kind of a mystical kind of a way that kind of makes that a memorable quote for me. All right. And that, Brandon, is my top 10.
Well, thank you so much for the top 10.
Oh, you are welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, I would say that this episode probably is, I mean, it's synonymous with Christmas, at least in my opinion, in terms of television sitcoms, just because, I mean, it truly embodies a little bit of everything what you would expect for a Christmas show, and really, in my opinion, helps set the scene for future Christmas shows to come.
I think so too, Brandon. You're very correct in that.
Yeah, and we spoke a little bit about how this was a lost episode, or at least considered to be lost. And I think a part of it is that I really think that for sitcoms, that a lot of them work to be very timeless, where you can watch them at any time, any place. But I mean, I think the fun of having this as a holiday episode is you're able to to look back at it and be like, oh, this is kind of cool. We're doing something a little different that we wouldn't have normally done for the show.
Hmm.
And I mean, I think it adds a little fun to it.
I think it adds a little fun to it also, Brandon. And I think holiday episodes, for the most part, kind of give a cozy feel to a lot of situational comedies. And so by giving that cozy feel, even though some people think it is dating a particular episode per se, I think it's nice that at least at this point in time, watching a rerun, as we've watched reruns throughout this holiday season on certain channels, that they have realized that there's a market for this. And so, that you are able to rerun this, not just, one time during the year, you're able to rerun it all the time.
Yeah, and I think we did mention this at some point, but there were 180 episodes of this series, but this is episode 164, so very close to the end of the run.
Yes, it is. It is. And we were stretching, Brandon, trying to remember if there were any other Lucy holiday episodes. I can't recall. I don't think I don't think there are per se that aired on the series itself, but and if it was, it had to be very slight. Um, but I just can't recall, Brandon.
But I will say too that you mentioned that towards the end they do break the fourth wall, which for those who aren't familiar, that is where basically they're looking directly at the camera and speaking to us, the audience.
Hmm.
But I will say they did this one other time, not in an episode, but as a little clip at the end of the show when they were first starting in episode 11, I believe.
Yeah, and you showed me that clip, Brandon, and that was very fascinating to see that they did have an episode. Well, it's not an episode. I think you told me it's 3 or 4 minutes that aired at the end of a special, if I remember. Is that correct?
Yeah, so at the end of episode 11 of the series titled Drafted, they aired a little 3 minute segment where the actors or characters were just sort of doing a little Christmas sort of, I don't know what you would call it, a little Christmas quip. But they had a very similar ending with the five Santas at the end, and so yeah, I didn't know about it, prior to doing the research right before recording this.
Yeah, and Brandon, I didn't have any idea either. So it was very nice to see that little clip and to see how they remember that clip 4 to 5 years later to air it.
Yeah, and so like I
Or
said, 5 years to the day, and we get a very similar scene, with this episode we just spoke about. So I mean, it's truly remarkable, and I wonder if anyone really, picked up on it, if they remembered it.
yeah, I know, and it was so many years back, we will never quite know if anyone remembers that particular clip from many, many years ago.
Yes, December 24th of 1951.
Yes, I guess we could ask your grandparents if they remember it, but I don't know anyone who to ask per se to see if they particularly remember that.
But since we do have a theme song of sorts, Mom, what are your thoughts about the "I Love Lucy" theme song?
Well, like you said, it's very iconic. I mean, I know that the background of the episode, meaning I know we're used to the heart, but I know that there were different, if I remember correctly, they've had different scenes for that heart. And so, um, and so, so I remember when they kind of discussed that, years ago. But it will, just to speak of the song itself, very iconic. So of course I've got to give it like a 9.5 because it is one that everyone knows. I think they can almost whistle it, and so it stands out as one that's just very memorable.
Yeah, I will say that definitely is one that is very, memorable. And yeah, I mean it's pretty fun, like I said, looking back at this episode, and for me, having seen the colored ones, but
Mhm.
also being familiar with the original, black and white edition, I will say I really like that and I know we just recently watched the black and white version,
Mhm.
but I will say that I like that there is a color one, but I actually kind of prefer the black and white one.
I know. Well, I guess for me, the colorization, because you always kind of imagine what colors were they really wearing, and of course, we'll really never quite know, but but it is nice to see what people envision that it would have been at that time period.
Yeah, and I did some research a few years ago on the colorization process, and I think they use, some pictures that were taken back then to sort of match up, or at least get it close enough to how the color should have been. But I mean, I know it will never be precisely accurate, but it is kind of, I don't know. It's so interesting watching the colorized version, because you are familiar with seeing the black and white one, and so I'd be curious to see if anyone who has never seen the series,
Mhm.
would go back and watch them to see what they think.
Yeah, it would be interesting, and we did look it up. You can buy the colorized versions of the episodes. If we had known ahead of time, we probably would have bought them, but yeah, you are able to go online and to purchase the colorized versions of the episodes of the few episodes, I should say, that are colorized.
Yeah, as a final tidbit for the colorization part too, the part that's always bothered me in viewing the colorized one is actually with the Christmas tree lights. So, and if you look at the black and white one, you can actually see a little hue, in terms of what I would imagine the color should be, like whether it's like a green light or a red light,
Hmm.
even though it's black and white. Like I feel like certain shades of, I guess, gray, like indicate to me which colors they should have been,
Hmm.
whereas in the colorized one they're all white lights.
Oh, I didn't even pick that up. I didn't pick that up at all, Brandon. So that's good. Now I'll have to rewatch that little section again.
Yeah, and so that has always bothered me in my viewing, but my guess is that because it's I mean, it's a light source that
Mm-hmm.
you probably can't go through there, and I don't know if anyone really bothered to. I don't know, to look at which colors they should have been, but I don't know. That's always bothered me.
We'll have to see. And maybe our audience can let us know. It's like, what is your preference? If you've seen this episode, do you prefer the black and white original or do you like the colorized version? Or have you only seen the colorized version of this particular episode?
Yeah, I definitely hope that you will let us know in the comments. But yeah, I mean, I would say that this is definitely a classic. And what would you say is your favorite part of this episode?
Well, I like the reflections because I think they did a really wonderful job of adding the reflections into this particular episode. Um, of course, I like all the Santas because I think the mystical part's really kind of interesting. And then, I'm always a fan of Little Ricky and the relationship uh, that I think they create, meaning Desi and Lucille, to in regards to their real life. I'm speaking to the real life persona, how they kind of portrayed onto Little Ricky. I like the way that's seen on TV, and I like the way Ricky calls him partner all the time.
I love that. And I would say that for me, my favorite part would probably be okay. I'd have two parts. One, I would say, is at the very end of the episode, with all the numerous Santas, is that after they go into the kitchen, where they all peek at little Ricky enjoying his toys and everything, like sort of like the joy on their face, I think is just so iconic. But again, I would have to say my other favorite part would be the flashback to Ricky as the time has come.
Yes, and we use that all the time in our house by saying, and we're just speaking in general, the time has come, just because we might be referring to something that we need to do pretty quickly or react a certain way.
Yes, that episode, yeah, and and looking back at the flashbacks, I have to mentally think if I remember the actual episodes that they're reflecting back to, because I've seen the Christmas special just so many times, and so I think I'd actually need to go rewatch the three or four episodes that they looked back at to see if I actually remember anything aside from those clips.
Yeah. Well, I can say I do remember the episode where she tells Lucy that tells Ricky that she's pregnant, and I also remember of course, the birth episode. The episode I don't remember is the Barbershop Quartet one. That one I don't recall.
Yeah, so maybe that'll be some of our end of 2023 viewings.
Yes, maybe it will be. And then, Brandon, I'll say for all of our episodes, we are busy getting ready for 2024 to come along. And so, if you have any requests, Brandon and I have started talking about planning. But if you have any requests that you want us to look at, please put it in the comments. It doesn't necessarily have to be a premiere episode per se. I know we've kind of concentrated on that. And then, of course, we did these holiday episodes for the last 5 weeks or so. But, um, but if you have a particular series you want us to look at, please put it in the comments. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yes, yeah, we are very excited for that. And Mom, will the bin return for 2024?
Oh, we'll have to see if the bin returns. You'll have to stay tuned to find out.
Well, I can't wait to see that. And were there any last thoughts that you had for this Christmas special?
No, all I want to say is that I've enjoyed watching these holiday episodes. Of course, we watch these we've talked about, but then we've watched others personally on our own, and so it has been very nice during this holiday season to kind of watch or to binge some of them that Brandon and I've done over the month of December.
Are there any of them that we have not spoken about during this tis the season time that that I guess stand out to you?
From what we've watched, no, we'll just have to keep our audience going. So next December, they could tune in to see what we think our 24 tis the season should be.
Well, I guess you'll have to wait 11 months or so to go see what our next tis the season will be.
Yes, you will. They will.
Well, Mom, this is always fun doing this, and I hope that you have been enjoying this holiday season.
I have been enjoying this holiday season. To everyone out there, we hope you had a good holiday. And we know we're a little late today posting, but we wanted everyone to enjoy their time.
I hope that you have an amazing rest of your 2023. Finish out this year strong and enter into 2024 confident. You got this.
Yep, and we look forward to seeing everyone in 2024.
Take care.
All right. Bye bye.